plus the other 2 lots that go on the Crestview, all separate, create sometimes along the way, could create some conflict. In doing that, even though I live on Cuarta Corrida, I did look at this, and it has an effect on me. And I did this little plan to show if we could create that cul-de-sac. And if you can look in between the properties, I don't know how to work this. Nope, I blew it. Nope. How do you get a light? I want to get a light. Oh, up here. Okay, thank you. Push the top. Can you see it? Or is it? Okay. There we go. As you can see, this area is in this open area that basically will be unused. And I created that cul-de-sac in that area. And bringing that property and bringing a road across, right across through here, and bringing it down right here in this area, it pretty well meets up with the street Dominica Corte. And that's where it'll come through. And as you can see, that's about the area. My intention here is to create the traffic to go, instead of each residence going on the Crestview, to have all the residents going to the center on both directions, from this house, this house, this house, and this house. And that way, all the traffic going here, and as it goes down and ends up going on the Crestview, it's one way coming in and the traffic. Also, in addition to that, you'll have service companies such as UPS, Federal Express, that will be stopping on these areas from time to time, the trash, and it will eliminate that by having access to the center area and all services, and as well as the residents will go down to the main street back in this area. So my proposal here is to create a cul-de-sac in this area, bringing these residents to that center area and bringing it down towards this direction, and it'll be coming every vehicle will be coming straight out forward, and it'll be much easier for the flow of traffic all the way around and not a problem. I think you understand what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So, any comments?
Are you an architect?
No.
Boy, you have nice handwriting like
I
that.
have a couple
Thank you.
comments.
Yeah, I studied it, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm not an architect.
We have a couple of comments here, Mr. Little.
Please.
Well, I think
question,
you may
I
be
think we have.
creating, you're solving a problem and creating some more, because if you did that, the houses would face out on that cul-de-sac, the backs would face out either on Crestview or the other street, Cordia,
Cuarta Corrida.
and would require lot walls, property walls. So the people on Crestview, you don't have walls now. There's no walls out on Crestview. So all the properties face out to the street on Crestview.
Does it require walls?
Well, most, I think.
I mean, my
policy
house has no
generally
walls.
is if we have the backs of the houses,
Yeah. My house has no walls.
well, you may be.
And I'm down below there. All the houses that we live on Cuarta Corrida,
Well,
there's no walls.
Well, if you put a house.
It's not really
with the back, if you put a house, the back of the house is on facing Crestview.
Yes.
I would think that the owners would want a privacy wall on Crestview to block the view of the backyard.
Well,
So,
there's people on the side, as you go down that street, and you'll notice, as you go further down, there's other homes that face to the side, and they don't have walls. All they have is just, they have
that's
fences and
right,
they have
that's what I'm
landscape.
saying.
Yeah. They have some landscape and some fencing, but not walls.
Yeah.
So it can be open. Yeah, so that's just my view, and that's why I thought you might be interested in this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Joe.
Thank you.
Next, I've got Dave Hassan. Is Dave here? Let's see, yeah. Did I pronounce your last name right, Dave?
Just plain Hassan.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, my name's Dave Hassan. I'm the representative of the owner of the property. I'm a retired civil engineer and friend of the family. I wanted to just give you a brief history of the property. This property was under the ownership of the Spires family since almost for 50 years. Back in 1980, when Spanish Hills came in, they were approached, as staff indicated, to annex. Lo and behold, because of personal reasons, he didn't elect to do it. But in the spirit of cooperation, he cooperated with the city of Camarillo to get rid of the S-curve, allow for the widening of Crestview, and two important areas I'd like to point out. This area right in here was part of a barranca and continued on to Spanish Hills. They gave grading rights so that the adjacent properties could develop their house on the Spanish Hills project. That's one area. There's another area to the west. For some reason, my marker's not working. But over by Lot 1 on the very end. Bob, do you have your marker? Okay.
There you go.
Is that on?
Press the star down.
Uh-oh. Don't let an engineer touch electrical of it. Okay. Is it on? Right here?
I mean, one of those is different.
There you go.
It's to the very west of the property, the first lot over there.
Point to it, Bob.
Bob, hold it for him. Tell him what to do. Where's the first lot?
The very first lot. Yes, that area right in there was graded by the Spanish Hills to develop the adjacent lots over there. Otherwise, they would be part of the barranca and no longer have a lot in that particular area. There's also a collection basin that picks up the lower portion of the area where the natural area where we're going to retain the eucalyptus grove that's in that particular area. That was the spirit of cooperation that the owner did. Upon the passing a few years ago, it was transferred to the daughter and the two sons, and they decided to proceed with this subdivision. We're in concurrence both with your Planning Commission recommendations to proceed and also the staff report. I'm here to answer questions, but I'd like to defer portion of my time to address any other comments from the public so that I could maybe shed some light on some of the discussion. I can address some of the issues that you brought up already, but I would like to wait until afterwards.
Okay. Are there any questions, Dave? I have one, Dave. I know it's a little premature, but the size of the houses up there, will they be contiguous to what is up there concurrently for the most part?
Yes, we anticipate a very similar build-out of custom homes there, and I don't know exactly whether it be 3,500, 5,000, 6,000. That would be up to the individual buyer of the lot, but I'm sure there'll be CC&Rs to allow for that.
Would you have, I'm sorry.
Do you have a plan? And maybe this is, well, I'll ask this question when you come back up.
Okay.
Let's see, Mike, did you have a question?
You will have a homeowner association, is that the idea?
Pardon
You, by CC&Rs, you will have a homeowner
me?
association?
No, we'll have CC&Rs, but there won't be a homeowners
So
association.
if the guy wants to do 3,000, not 5,000, he could do that?
Yes.
Mr. Little, I believe, had a
I
question.
have a question. Are you going to do lot sales or sell this to a builder?
We're not sure right now. Both are options available to us. There's been some interest in both directions. This is a prime area, as you well can imagine.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Dave. Okay, next we've got Edward Atzinger. Oh, there he is, okay. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I did send a letter to the Planning Commission about this project when I got the notice, and I appeared and made some comments. I live in the property 165 Avocado Place. I've been there since 1982. I don't have the magic marker here, but if that part right there, that's my property is contiguous with that. And the Barranca area is there, and that's the area that the proposal would restrict in terms of developing structures. I had concerns about slope stability. We've had some erosion there. That's a very deep Barranca. And I met with my neighbor. I've known the Spears family for many years. We've been neighbors, well, since I've lived there, and they've been there. Her family was there for years before. And we've been able to manage as neighbors, and I've planted trees in that slope area. It's basically unusable. It's very steep, and you can't really pass easily from the property to that part of the property because there's this Barranca that drops off about 30 feet, and it's very deep and it's very steep. Mm-hmm. And it's basically a drainage area. And when Spanish Hills was developed, they improved that to some extent, put a major culvert in, and so it's managed well now. But we get some erosion. There is some instability in that Barranca, and the Barranca protrudes right up at one point to my property. So I've always been proactive. If I see a little erosion, I can take measures to mitigate it, and we've planted some trees, mainly the trees that are natural to the area, to just act as watershed to prevent significant erosion. And that's the way we've operated for 30 plus years. So when I saw the proposal, I was a little concerned with the change in ownership and then being annexed to the city, where you've got different jurisdictions. Would my friendly kind of practices that we've employed for the last several years, would I be able to carry those forward? And so I began discussions with my neighbor to see if we couldn't come up with some agreement that would give me an easement that I would negotiate and compensate appropriately, and have an easement that would allow me to at least maintain the slope proactively, so that if there's erosion, I wouldn't face a situation with new owner that may not be as cooperative and neighborly. And we've had good discussions, but at the Planning Commission meeting, we had not really arrived at a firm sort of agreement. We have subsequently agreed. Our representatives have met, and we kind of put together something that we're memorializing now, but I'm quite satisfied that it does provide me with the protection that I'll need to continue to be proactive in that regard. I said at the time that I thought the project was consistent with what's been approved in the past in that area, and I believe that. These lots, I think, will be developed in a way that will be consistent with the area. We like the orchard, but it is an aging orchard, and it's a little out of sync with what's there. So I don't see this development at all as inconsistent with the character of the neighborhood. I hear my other friend here that's a neighbor, we've not met before, but I don't think I would support that proposal for the cul-de-sac. I know that area, and I think your concerns about privacy, the street that have egress and egress on, the cul-de-sac that's there would take much of that property, and I think that's a more natural way for it to work. So that appears to be a sensible plan, and I think the City Planning Commission and staff, I think that's their proposal, or they agree with that proposal.
Okay.
So given my concerns, we'll memorialize our deal, but given what we've come up with, I'm quite satisfied that my concerns have been addressed, and I think the project is consistent and with what's been approved in the past. And I think probably most of the neighbors I know would probably look on this as something that would be an enhancement. I don't think they'd see it as something that would denigrate the neighborhood. It would be consistent with what's there, particularly since Spanish Hills was developed. And the Spear family, by the way, was very accommodating. I was there when Spanish Hills was developed. I've been a member from the beginning, a kind of charter member, and I think it's a great asset for the community. And at the time, I thought they were very accommodating with the city and with the developer to really make that happen and to make it come out as nicely as it did. So I
there-
think this project is consistent with that tradition.
We may have a couple questions of you, too, if you...
Sure.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
I just thought that maybe if you, I'm not sure it's avocados or fruit, but maybe if you offered the guys next door some out of your orchard, it might make them friends.
Well,
Just a joke.
yeah, all right.
I have just a real quick question vis-a-vis the Barranca. At this particular point, you've been able to mitigate some of the erosion by pretty much just planting trees there? Is that pretty much what's happened?
Yeah, we planted some trees to provide some watershed to break up so you don't get big currents coming, and some shrubs. And then we just keep an eye on it, and there are places where you can get a little bit of erosion, and we sometimes can get a little proactive and shore it up with a little more soil, or even in some cases we've driven a couple of little pylons down to stabilize a particular section. It's not terribly threatening, but it could be. I mean, that's the concern.
When you get when you get a little rain, do you generate some water there?
We do, and we've been through a couple of El Niños. We've had a lot of rain, and it's maintained pretty well. I mean, we've been proactive. At one point, we had a little erosion some years ago, and we were able to go in and to shore it up a little bit, and so it's been reasonably stable. We keep an eye on it, and there has been some slippage in parts of it, but they're still pretty far down the Barranca. The city's proposal to restrict development on that piece of it, I think, is consistent with that. I think that will. I think if you try to develop it, there would be some real problems. So there is some sand in those layers. That Barranca is not all solid. There's some sand, and you can get that can facilitate some slippage. But I think their proposal to restrict structure development, and then as staff said, we would not. We enter into a formal easement agreement, which we're working on, and we would make the language such that in no way would it be inconsistent with what the city has proposed in terms of their restrictions. I think that would be adequate for our concerns, and I think it would be in the best interest of the whole area in terms of long-term stability.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just
Mr.
a
Little had
comment.
one.
I think Mr. Atzinger's proposal to help out is a benefit to the city, since we're going to be taking the responsibility for the open space.
Same thing.
Yep. And so it would be a cooperative arrangement, and appreciate that.
Okay, any other
Thank you
questions?
very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Atzinger. Thank you. All right, I don't have any more blue cards. Would the applicant like to, let me close the public hearing. I'll bring the applicant back up here.
Stays in during the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, if you want to come up, Dave, and did you want to make any comments on some of the things that you've heard?
Yes, I did want to address a couple of the comments that you had before regarding wells. The water company, Crestview Mutual Water Company, has a well which is located, hopefully this works, right in this area. And it's bordered by a fence and so forth. And they provide, they pump from that particular well. You heard from Mr. Atzinger. Sewer service would be to the county sanitary district. And I wanted to address the comment that was made by the other homeowner with the alternate design that was presented at the Planning Commission. And besides having the lots back up to the residents, which would be, to me, a deterrent, because people sometimes have a tendency not to maintain the backyard of an area, and I'd much rather see the frontage of the lots to a street, which is consistent with what the planning department indicated. Staff also recommended at that time when that was discussed that the traffic engineer had no problem as far as traffic because of the small lot count, and providing another street would just add an extra tax burden to the city for no particular reason. Those are some additional comments. Also, the proposal to put a cul-de-sac in this general area, I haven't seen the actual sketch, but the proposal was to put it here, and there's a residence right here, which I don't think he would be very happy about having. Well, a block wall or anything like that, there's still a noise when you have a cul-de-sac. And that
Dave, I have just one follow-up.
Sure.
If I don't know, were you finished?
Yes.
Most of the traffic, is it going to be put out on Crestview, or will some of it get on that Corte Granita, or will it go on
The lots
Dominica?
that face Corte Catina, these
Yeah.
lots in here will go to Corte Catina, which was always planned as a cul-de-sac. We would be required to complete the balance of that cul-de-sac, which is not completely developed. And the lots, these 5 lots here would take access to Crestview, which, as staff mentioned, the concern, and we had a concern too, that we wouldn't want anybody to back up into Crestview and make sure there was either circular driveways
Yeah.
or turnaround areas. And we're in accordance with the 178 conditions of this map. So, and that's been covered. A lot of the environmental issues were addressed in those conditions too.
Now, assuming there's some movement tonight, what is your timeline for this?
We will then proceed, staff will then proceed to LAFCO to get their approval, and I believe it comes back to city for final action, or no? The final map will come back. It will probably take LAFCO 3 months or so, and then it'll probably take another 3 months before plans are developed, and depending on your processing of your staff,
Okay.
of the final map and improvement plans.
Okay.
Question.
Any other questions? Oh, Mr. Morgan had a question. Dave.
I hope I didn't hear you wrong. Maybe I heard you wrong and I was doing something else, but you will be on the Camarillo Sanitary District connection to us, right?
It's Camarillo Sanitary District. Right?
Okay, because I thought I heard you say something else earlier about a county.
Oh, no.
Okay, I went, no.
And that's part of the annexation request
Exactly.
that is being presented.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
I have a question of staff.
Oh, Mrs.
No, of
Nothing?
staff.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Craven, do you want to ask staff a question now?
My question involves something that was in the staff report and that Mr. Burrows said, and it was that they're in the allocation process for the upcoming one. And yet, he said it'd probably be 3-4 months before this had a decision by LAFCO. I don't know what LAFCO's timeline is or how long they take on things, but can something get an allocation before it's annexed?
Yes.
Okay. And we've done that in the past? I don't remember.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, even Spanish Hills, when they were first going through the process, there were still a number of things to be worked out, the final map, the annexation, and so forth. But yes, you can award the allocations, which don't actually become effective till January of 2015 anyway.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
And while I'm up here, I just wanted to modify one thing I stated. The biology report does identify that one grove at the west end there has a potential for butterfly habitat, but they're not protected. So irregardless, that's why they're not touching that, just to be on the safer side.
Oh, good.
The one condition that is specific is that the biology report identified that nesting birds were potentially protected. So that's when they would have to do the studies before any tree removals for that area.
That's only during the nesting time.
That's correct.
Mrs. McDonald?
I had one question. And my question had to do with the timing again, and I believe you just told me that, or said that it was the beginning of 2015 on the allotment cycle. So the soonest we could see anything would be spring of 2015 or something like that? And let me go back to,
We would see what?
Well, development of any kind. I mean, if they got their allotments,
Not that soon.
Probably 16.
16.
okay, and that's even better. My concern is being in the middle of a drought, and I know they have water service, but you know what it takes, and you look at the condition of keeping dust down, that requires water and so forth. And I still am predicting El Nino to come back, so I'm hoping that happens before we get to that.
I hope you're right.
I hope so. I'm going to keep saying it till it happens. But, so we wouldn't see any of this until hopefully we're out of drought conditions and then we can get back to somewhat normal, and before we would see development out there then, and as far as a timeline.
I think in terms of reality for starting grading, it's going to take a little bit more than just spring
That's right,
to
we got to
go
go through all that too.
to
huh?
go through their grading plan check, the final soils reports, record map through the county and such. So what we're looking at is to file the annexation if your action initiates that this evening. And the LAFCO's identified that probably in September they'd have the hearing on that. It still takes a couple months, as Mr. Hassan's saying, with regard to getting all of the documents ready to record just for the annexation. But even after that, the 178 conditions, the Subdivision Map Act, and all those requirements, there's still quite a bit of more detailed work yet to do.
So we're probably 2 years then?
Yeah, it could be a year and a half, too. Just, again, it also depends on the market, too, to make sure that the market is strong enough to support it.
Okay. Because my one concern is obviously the water that it takes just to keep the dust down and whatnot, and then we're in the middle of a drought, so to me, it doesn't send a real good message that you can't drink your water, or, use water, and then, we're doing it for that. But if my prediction holds true, El Nino's going to show up and we'll be out of the drought by the time this happens.
I keep saying that for a long time, maybe.
It may take me a while, but I think it's going to happen.
Currently, they are irrigating the orchard on Crestview water, too, so that would be taken offline and then used for grading, and then ultimately the residences. And if there were to be any other aspects of Crestview, they'd be subject to any new requirements as well.
Okay.
During the EIR process, county water resources addressed that issue, and we provided documentation as to water use to irrigate the orchard versus the residents, and it was actually a net benefit to the city water to the water supply. So we think
Once they get built.
Yeah, once we have the build out, the orchard was a hobby of Mr. Spire's, and it never panned out, as most hobbies don't.
Probably enjoyed
it is
it,
a
though.
financial burden, and that's one of the other reasons why the current owners of the family want to proceed with this subdivision. And
But
I
you
thank
understand why I
again
was a
for
little
your-
worried about water,
No,
because obviously
that's a
what
very important thing, and I thought I'd address that because it was a concern and brought up during the EIR process.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, I don't have any more blue cards. Would anybody else like to come forward on this? With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Would staff like to add anything that hasn't been added yet on these presentations that we've had, testimony?
Can I ask a question of staff? Your Honor, may I ask a question of staff? Absolutely. And it's a clarifying question. I believe Mr. Burrows said, when the question was asked at first, that the city does not take on the obligation of maintaining the open space. And maybe you need to explain that again, because I think I just heard someone say that we would be doing that.
The condition requires that they simply transfer the development rights to the city so that no development could occur. We would not own fee title to the property. It's not even an easement per se. It would be an agreement so that if somebody ever wanted to consider building a structure there vis-a-vis grading the pad for it and everything, we would have the power to say, no, that's consistent with the requirements of the tract.
But it would not be the obligation of the city of Camarillo to maintain the barranca or
Correct.
any of those.
We'd have no responsibility other than saying yes or no if they wanted to actually build something.
Maybe visit the butterflies, but we don't have to take care of them.
In fact, if it turns out to be a fire hazard, the city could say you're going to have to take some mitigation efforts to correct it.
The fire department would notify the fee
Exactly.
title holders, the actual lot people, not the city.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Is anything else from staff? Okay, so what's the will? Let's open up some comments from board members here, council members.
I'll move to adopt a resolution approving mitigated negative declaration 2013-18, prepared for annexation 112, change of zone 320.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously.
Your Honor, I move to adopt resolution initiating proceedings of annexation 112.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote on that as well. That passes unanimously.
Requested a reading of the title.
This would be ordinance number 1095, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Camarillo pre-zoning certain real property to the RE1AC Rural Exclusive 1 acre minimum parcel size zone for approximately 19.15 acres located on the northerly side of Crestview Avenue and the south side of Corte Corrida, further described and set forth as change of zone CZ 320 Crestview Ranch LLC.
Move to waive further reading of the ordinance and to introduce an ordinance pre-zoning the 19.5 acre parcel to RE1AC, rural exclusive 1 acre minimum parcel size zone.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote on that as well. Okay, that passes unanimously. One more to do.
I'll move adopt a resolution approving tentative track 5920, subject to conditions of approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Before we leave this, I'd like to thank the applicant for working with the staff. I'd like to thank our staff for working with the applicant and the neighbors there that you're going to be part of this project here. So
I did want to comment on something. I worked for a major builder for over 40 years, Chappelle Industries, and dealt with a lot of cities, and your staff, both planning and engineering, are very professional and very helpful in getting this whole process going. So and especially Bob Burrow was a big benefit. He was able to walk us through and notify us of what we needed in a timely fashion. So I wanted the council to acknowledge their efforts, Public Works and Planning.
Your Honor,
Thank you.
thank you, Dave.
Before we leave this item, this reminds me of a little time back when we had Spanish Hills wanting to come in, and every neighbor on the other side said, no, it's going to do this, that, and the other. Well, today they won't say that because the golf course is in their backyard. Well, this is a piece of property that reminds me of that same one. I think it's going to be improved and be a nice place to live.
I agree. Thank you.
They said it was going to lower their property tax values.
They did.
I remember that.
We had to
Sat up
ignore
here
it.
puzzling.
Okay,
How is that going to do that?
For the time being, I'm going to recess this meeting, give it over to Mrs. Craven to reconvene the Cam San meeting.
I will reconvene the meeting of the Camarillo Sanitary District Board of Directors and ask the record to reflect that all board members are present. We're reconvening for the purpose of a public hearing on board member compensation. Could we have the staff report, please?
Brian? Yeah, I'll be I was just letting the audience step out. On June 25th of 2014, the board requested that this item be included on a future agenda for discussion of compensation for board members and possible action with regard to that compensation. As indicated in the agenda report, the current compensation for board members is consistent with state law, namely Health and Safety Code Section 6489 and the Water Code Section 202. The current compensation for board members per day is $170.65. That's as of January 1 of 2014. Under the current ordinance, there would be a 5% increase that would go into effect on January 1 of 2015. That would result in an increase of $8.53 in the current compensation amount, so it would take it to $179.18. As I've indicated in the staff report, the agenda report, there are options that are available to the board with respect to compensation. I've identified those as options 1, 2, and 3. The first option would be to eliminate the 5% increase that's currently provided by your ordinance and provide that any future increases would be considered and voted upon the board, by the board at appropriate times as requested by the board, not to exceed the 5% maximum. That is what I've called option 1. Option 2 would be to reduce the annual compensation increase to a percentage lower than 5%. It could be any percentage below that. And the third option would be to maintain the status quo, namely the 5% annual compensation increase. So the suggested action is, if you're going to pursue option number 1, that was to eliminate the 5% increase and vote on it annually or whenever you choose to vote on it. There would be 2 actions that would be necessary. One is a motion to introduce the ordinance that's in the packet, and 2 would be to adopt a resolution rescinding the prior compensation resolution, number 2004-21. I would like to mention that the way the ordinance is currently drafted, and I'm on page A8 in the packet. Section 3 of the ordinance currently as drafted reads this way with respect to future adjustments of compensation. This would be the proposed ordinance if the board wishes to consider it. It says any future annual increases in compensation for directors shall be voted upon by the board, and the increase may not exceed an amount equal to 5% for each calendar year following the operative date of the last adjustment. And the reason that it was written that way is because that's what the current code state statute provides. If there were a change in the state statute to change that percentage to something different than 5%, then you would may need to amend this ordinance. There is a way to resolve the need to have to come back and amend the ordinance if we were to slightly revise that language. So I'll just call what I'm about to describe to you as the alternative language. In the passage that I just read where it says the increase may not exceed an amount, you could substitute alternatively for that, may not exceed an amount permitted by law, period. So if you wanted to modify the ordinance in that manner as it's written, you could do that, or you could go with what it is there now and come back and revisit the ordinance if there were ever a change in the law in the future. I'm available to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, this one is pretty straightforward, I think. Mr. Little, you are the one, I believe, who asked that it come back and asked that it come back.
Yeah.
And so would you like to start?
Yeah, I understand that, the reasons for the ordinance at the time, but this ordinance has no end to it. In other words, it's just stays in effect, and so every year there's 5% added to 5% added to 5%. We've gone from about $100 to $170, which over the period of time, which is about 9 or 10 years. So it seems to me that my position is that public officials certainly are entitled to have their salaries or per diems adjusted. However, I think it's in the interest of democracy that we have the matter put on a public hearing and have a public hearing, and at the result of that public hearing to either take action or not take action. I don't think it should be that on January 1st, everyone gets an automatic increase without anybody saying boo. So that's.
So you're supporting alternative 1?
I'm supporting alternative 1, which is to eliminate the 5% compensation and provide that any future increases will be considered and voted on by the board at a not to exceed 5% a year, or that is permitted by the increase as permitted by state law. And that's.
Let me just put in a word for having it say that it conforms to state law, or however he said it. We've changed a lot of our other things to say that, because state law often changes more often than our ordinances, and then we find we're in conflict.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I feel the same way Bill does. I think we should vote on not have it automatically every year.
Okay. So you support alternative number one?
Number one.
Yes.
to go first?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that, future council members ought to be able to decide how much that they want to go. I think item one gives us and the future councils that opportunity to do that as well. And they can decide whether or not, whatever number that is up to the 5%.
Or whatever state law allows. They could go down. They could go down.
Whatever state law allows.
I can't imagine them increasing it for us.
Either.
Mrs. McDonald?
I'm okay with it. I'm going back to when we did this in the first place, and I think that the calculation was, because you got to remember, we're talking about $8 here is the increase, so you're not talking about a lot of money, so that we need to make sure we keep this in context. And it was done because it cost us more to go through the process than the raise was, and so that was the reason for doing it. But we all stand on our principles. There's some things that you just don't like because of the principle of the thing, and I know that I've sat up here and done enough of my own votes for that. I'll go back to the $5,000 for 2.5 minutes of fireworks. There's no way in the world I'd ever vote for that. But that's my choice, and some people have other choices. So we all stand on principle.
Especially the way they turned out.
Yeah, really. And we do that. I mean, that's just what we do. So if this is important, and another thing I want to bring up is you always approve the raise because you approve it at budget time. You don't do it in a separate public hearing under compensation, but it is an item in the budget every year that is done in public hearings. So, yeah, just for the public, I don't want them to think that we were doing something and compare us to Bell, that we were out here raising our salaries and da-da-da-da. It's, we're talking a total cost to the city of less than $1,000. It was, I think this year is $938 if it were to happen. So it's not a lot of money, but if it's the principle of the thing, I have no problem with it. I think, it's, I would support doing it with the wording that it's according to state law, though, because then again, it costs us more money to try to keep up with state law every time we have to pay the attorney to write a new ordinance to write, because at his rate, it costs us $1,000 to do a.
Per word.
Per word, yeah.
Maybe I should interrupt. This is a public hearing item.
Right.
Okay. So
Well, that's
It
right,
is
we're
a-
giving our comments.
Yeah, I don't-
Comments,
I don't-
however, we might change our minds
I don't.
based upon
Yeah.
what all these people out here say. I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anybody, I don't have a card. Could you just state your name for the record, please? And tell me which name you're going to use this time.
Matthew Wayne Lorimer.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. Any kind of increase, again, like I said, if you look at the total thing and stuff like that, I think people do and the public need to know and have an opportunity to make comments when it comes time for people to get increases. Especially, a lot of employees haven't seen increases in years, and it's a small amount, but still, people should have that opportunity. So I think that's a positive thing that you guys are gonna vote on. So
You might have changed our minds.
I know. No, that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else who'd like to speak to us? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. I have to say this, that we got this ordinance because of a request I made, because I knew the law had been changed, because CASA had gotten this passed. When it came to us, I was really shocked that it was automatic, because I thought it was going to come to us so that we were going to, this is years ago, so that we were going to be voting on it every year. I thought it would be, or not every year, I think it was every other year, because I think it's still that you can't do it unless it's an election year.
That's right.
So I believe that, I said every year, I meant every other year. But that was what we decided, was to go ahead with the ordinance that was presented. So I think we're getting now to where I had wanted it. But I do support saying in accordance with state law. So, any other comments or motions?
Your Honor, I'll move that we, I guess, adopt option 1, which will eliminate the 5% annual compensation increase and provide that in the future increases will be considered and voted upon by the board in the amount not to exceed 5% or whatever is permitted by state law,
Well, how about not the or, just,
Provided by state law.
provided by state law. Okay.
Perhaps I could restate what I said before, so that...
that sounds
That
good.
we've got a common understanding on what the ordinance would read. So that Section 3 would read, towards the end of it, may not exceed an amount permitted by state law, period. And then the rest of that sentence, beginning with equal to 5%, would be deleted. And I'm not quite sure, we didn't...
5%? Okay.
That language would be deleted. So it would read, may not exceed an amount permitted by law, period.
Okay.
And the rest of the sentence would be deleted.
I'll
Always do
second that
less, you just
motion.
can't-
May not
Okay,
exceed an amount permitted by law.
And could I perhaps ask a city clerk a question? We didn't set this up for a first reading. We do say it's to introduce, so should I read the ordinance by title? Yes. So if that was the motion, then let me read it by title. This would be CSD Ordinance Number 86, an ordinance of the Camarillo Sanitary District setting board member compensation. And then,
there's a motion and a second. Further comments? Please vote. Motion carries unanimously.
then we have a
Is there
resolution.
a motion to adopt a resolution of the
I'll
Camarillo
move we adopt resolution.
Second.
rescinding resolution number 2004-21? Okay, motion and a second, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. It isn't on here, but I believe there's one more thing we need to talk about, just because we say it would be brought back. Is there anybody who wants to bring it back to vote on an increase for this year, because we need to direct staff to do that?
What do you-
I don't hear anybody, so staff has the direction on that one.
Okay.
Okay. We will now adjourn. I believe that's it.
All right, I'll reconvene the city council meeting to item 4, city council. However, I believe that we want to do item E on the consent before that. Is all right, Mr. Norman? Okay.
Well, I don't remember what my question was now.
Maybe you'll get to it a
get
little
there.
bit here.
I think you skipped the item 4A.
Oh, city
Well,
council.
the reason is because Mr. Norman has asked me if we could do item E on the
Okay.
consent before we do that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Norman, would you like to proceed then, please?
Mr. Smith will present the item.
Do you want me just to tell you why I asked to have it pulled, if that make it easier for you?
Yes.
It surprised me a little bit, and excuse me if I don't remember this correctly, but is this the first time we're going out to have, to contract out for this? Didn't we used to do it internally?
The last time the contract went out was in 1999.
Oh, maybe that's why I don't remember.
The previous person that had my position was kind of working off a sole source situation, so kept on just moving along using comprehensive housing services since 1999 based on that. HUD did a minor, did a audit of us this last year, and they felt that we should go out again per our procurement policy. So we did that. We sent out the RFP to 6 firms, and we only got 2 responses. One said that they weren't interested, and the other one was comprehensive housing services. I hear the reason for that is that it's a pretty small loan. It's only $100,000, and so the other firms just didn't think it was worth their time. So we went forward with Comprehensive Housing Services. Dave and I interviewed them again, and actually got some good input from the HUD audit, and because of that, we're going to implement a couple new things in form of purchase orders and invoicing for third source parties like lead paint companies and things like that. So it was a really good interview. We recommend going with Comprehensive Housing Services again because it's the only one that wanted to do it, but also because they're very qualified, and I have their full statement of qualifications here if anybody's interested in reviewing those.
So you're really not going to change, other than these fine tunings, how we've been operating? It's just that I wasn't remembering back to 1999 then when we let the last contract.
It's a good idea for our procurement policy that I think every 3 years we're going to do this now. And that's why we're asking for the 3-year term, 1 year with the city manager able to do 2 one-year extensions. So it's just a better way of doing business.
Right, good. Okay, that was really all I needed. Sorry. Sorry to make you stay so long.
That's fine.
Mr. Little had a question.
How many of the applications and cases do we process in a given year, just as an average?
Well, it's based on money. When I first took over the program, there was quite a lot of money in the program. So we were able to do up to 10 homes in the first year. So that's $25,000 a pop. So that's sometimes $300,000. But this year, we only allocated $97,000 to the rehab program. We gave some more money to Habitat for Humanity. So we're kind of splitting the pot up this year. So this year we're probably going to do 3 or 4 homes, and we're going to finish up a couple homes from last year.
And how does that compare, the 3 or 4, compare to the amount of people who apply for it?
We get quite a few people. I put out an article in the City Scene a couple of years ago, so we had a big response for that, and that's when we had the extra money. So that's one of the reasons we have Comprehensive Housing Services. They filter all that out for me, and they review all the applications. But to answer your question, it can be anywhere from 5 to 10 a year.
We can only do 2 or 3 or 4?
We can do 3, but I have more arrows in my quiver with Habitat, and that's been working out quite well for me. Because some of the people are just looking for smaller things, so I look at the applications when they call me, and sometimes they're asking for minor things, they call me asking for a loan or a grant, and so I speak to them and I talk to them and I go, you know what might be a better fit for you is Habitat. So I've been able to work with Felipe Flores of Habitat and let these other folks go into Habitat and be served that way.
Well, I think it's a very important program for the preservation of neighborhoods, and if there's any way we could expand it in some way through Habitat or other uses, it would be, I think we should try to do that.
Well, we're based on what HUD gives us, and we're pleasantly surprised that they gave us a little bit more. So we got about $297,000 from HUD this year.
Yeah.
So
How much did we have again?
we got $297,000 this year, and when I brought it to you for the first to the council, we thought we were going to get $279,000, so we got about $20,000 more than we thought.
But a lot of that goes for grants and other things other than this program.
Well, a lot of it goes for several things. I think Dave wants to answer that.
Yes, you're correct. As you'll remember, we are bound by formula in terms of our allocation. So, for example, 15% of your grant will go to human services, 20% will go to administration, and the balance will go to what you have determined are our community priorities, which is housing rehabilitation, either through our loan program or through Habitat for Humanity.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Could I just make a comment?
Sure,
Particularly because he waited so long.
Thank you.
But I want to give you a compliment. Talking with the people at Habitat for Humanity, just sing your praises about how great you are to work with and what a great job the city's doing, and it really goes back to you, and we really thank you for a job well done, because you really are affecting a lot of people's lives, and it's really great.
It's really pretty rewarding position, so thank you.
Very good job.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, do we have a motion for?
Move the approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion here? None, please vote. That passes unanimously. Okay, Councilor, now that gets back, I believe, to the City Council. Item A, invocation at the city council meeting. Do we have a staff report on that?
Yes, the city council has requested a report on the subject of invocations or prayer at council meetings based on the recent court decision, the United States Supreme Court decision of Town of Greece, New York versus Galloway that was decided on May 5th of 2014. This item is being presented to you this evening for discussion by the city council and possible direction to city staff. The staff report summarizes the Town of Greece case, and I'll just hit some of the high points. What the Town of Greece did was they had an informal method for selecting prayer givers. A town employee would call congregations that were listed in the local directory until she found a minister that was available. The town did not review the prayers in advance, and they left to the guest clergy the freedom to compose their own devotions. The prayers sometimes included both civic and religious themes and included references to Lord and Jesus Christ. Susan Galloway and Linda Stevens filed a lawsuit in the United States District Court. They alleged that the town had violated the First Amendment's Establishment Clause by preferring Christians over other prayer givers when the prayers included the words "in Jesus' name." They did not, in their lawsuit, seek to end the prayer practice, but to limit the town to inclusive and ecumenical prayers that referred only to a generic God and did not associate the government with any one faith or belief. That was the facts. Here was what the court decided. They referenced, the Supreme Court did a earlier Supreme Court decision called Marsh versus Chambers that was decided in 1983. In the Marsh case, the court found that there was no violation of the First Amendment in connection with the Nebraska legislature's practice of opening its sessions with a prayer from a chaplain paid with state funds, and there are several states that follow that practice. The court also noted that the first Congress of the United States appointed and paid chaplains for both the House and the Senate, and that practice continues to the present time. The court rejected the argument that legislative prayer must be generic or non-sectarian and address only a generic God. The court stated that prayer that reflects beliefs specific to only some creeds can still serve to solemnize the occasion, with this qualification: so long as the practice over time is not exploited, to proselytize or to attempt to convert or recruit or advance any one or disparage any other faith. The court noted, among other things, that prayers are part of our heritage and tradition, that there are similar expressions in the Pledge of Allegiance, in the inaugural prayer, and in fact, they noted that the Supreme Court begins each of its sessions with this statement: "God save the United States and this honorable court." Finally, the court concluded that the analysis would be different if the town board members directed the public to participate in the prayers or singled out dissidents for disgrace or indicated that their decisions might be influenced by a person's acquiescence in the prayer opportunity. The court also noted that that the prayers occurred during a ceremonial portion of the town meeting, not during the policy-making period. The holding by the court was that the prayer in the Town of Greece case has a permissible ceremonial purpose and is not an unconstitutional establishment of religion. I have indicated in the agenda report the survey that the city staff conducted of other cities. This is on page A3 of the agenda report. The other 9 cities in the county, of those other 9 cities, the only ones of the 9 that have some invocation or something similar would be Port Hueneme has what they call an inspiration on the agenda, in which a council member by rotation has the opportunity to read a poem or part of a speech or give a history lesson, give personal thoughts, or lead a prayer. In Santa Paula, invocation is on the agenda, and if someone is there to give the invocation, there is one. And then the last one would be the City of Simi Valley. They are currently studying the matter. They've appointed an ad hoc committee to review guidelines. The remaining cities in the county do not have an invocation. So my conclusions based on the legal analysis is that the United States Supreme Court has ruled with respect to interpreting the United States Constitution that prayer at a council meeting is not in violation of the First Amendment. There is an open question about whether or not, if there were a challenge brought under the Article 1, Section 4 of the California Constitution, which addresses freedom of religion, whether there could be a challenge to that under the California Constitution. However, as I mentioned in the agenda report, the California courts do tend to be guided by the decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court when interpreting the First Amendment on these issues, on the Establishment Clause. So the item, as I indicated earlier, is here for discussion at the request of the council, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Perrick at this time? Any questions? Okay. Any comments? Would you like to start any kind of dialogue here? Anybody? Would you like me to go first, or what would you like to do?
Go ahead, Bill.
Your Honor, this was proposed by myself and Councilmember Morgan. As a result of hearing about this case, I recall a number of years ago when this council regularly opened their business with a invocation from a clergyman in this located in this community, and it seemed to me to be always something that would kind of settled everything down and got us in a proper frame of mind to do the public's business. So I would like to see us reinstate that. Would be to work along with the clergy. One time there was a ministerial council in the city. I don't know that it's still there or not. I expect it is. But would be to contact them and see if we can solicit their abilities to organize the thing for us and schedule the people and have a rotating group of people who would come at various council meetings. So
Your Honor.
that's our thoughts.
Mrs. Craven?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. I do remember why we stopped, and it was because we flipped from the 5:30 to the 7:30 to 5:30, and I think we were ending up having it at 7:30, and the Protestant denominations were meeting, and I suspect they still do, on Wednesday evenings, and just about the time that we do this. So maybe one conversation with the Ministerial Association is, as a whole, would it be better if we did it at 5 o'clock or at 7:30? Because if we're going to exclude a whole group of them, then I think we need to consider the time. I just going down this list, I would support it if it's on a regular basis with a variety of ministers coming in, you know what I mean, alternating.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we should do it as one city does, just if somebody happens to be out there and wants to come and do it. I don't think that, or I would not be able to support just rotating council members and each of us doing what we wanted.
Your Honor,
Mr. Morgan?
I've had a chance to go talk to a whole lot of them. I met with a Lutheran priest, minister, and also Maloney from the Cornerstone Church. They were part of the Ministerial Association, and the association doesn't always include everybody. Rabbi Lang's already expressed a tremendous interest in helping and coming in and doing this. I talked to the Vineyard Church member who was, I just happened to saw him, start talking to him, and he says, oh, I want to do that too, I want to come in. And then Chaplain Knapp. We've got others we can talk to too, in between, and see how many want to be on this list that can have I'd call it a coordinator. I think we need to set up a committee to help work on this and see what we can do to make sure it stays and make sure it's rotating all the different. I need to talk to the bishop next door and see if they, if they want to come in too. So there's a lot of things to do yet in setting it up.
Anything else?
I would recommend we do a committee to further this until we get it, get it all set up and then bring it back.
You want me to make a comment? You want to?
Oh, I'll make a comment.
You want to go ahead?
My thought is I have no problem doing this. I think I would like to see the, not put this on to staff or the city clerk to have to coordinate it. I think that it needs to be that organization, and they can coordinate it
That's what I'm
themselves. We
talking
give
about.
them the opportunity, the time, but that it's, and if there's not somebody here, we go on with business. But it's up to them to work with, among themselves and come up with some kind of program that they think would work, and.
That's what I was
and-
talking
and-
about.
Yeah, just exactly.
I've already been talking to them about that. Set up a group that will work together and leave it, and with somebody be a chairman, and let them do
And
it.
let them do it.
Exactly.
And we afford them the opportunity at a set time, and for so long, we got to put a time on it, because I know some of them can go for quite a while.
We did have that problem.
They have it every year. I mean, every meeting at the county supervisors, there's been no problem.
Well, you just said,
I don't think
it's like
we'll have
any other thing we do, we set criteria and
Yeah, I
we do
know.
it. But I really don't want to put it on to staff to have to go out looking for
I don't think we're recommending
somebody or anything, and
that. Yeah, that's not being recommended.
so, well, I'm just making I get to say my
Mm-hmm.
point, and so that's my thought on it. And as far as which time, I assume that you would do it at the 5 o'clock to start because we make as many decisions at 5 as we do at 7:30.
I think 5 o'clock, we could certainly start that way and see how it worked. But I think we need to,
Work with them first, Bill.
yeah, I'll get a meeting set up with
Best for
the Ministerial Association and sit down and start talking to them about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the mayor wants to appoint an ad hoc committee to go out and do
Let
it
me-
or something.
I'm a pretty religious guy, but I've been thinking a lot about this, and I don't think this is that easy. I don't think we can just have a ministerial association come here and lead us all into some kind of prayer and not open it up to other religions. I don't think that's what the court case said. And as I understand the court case, we can't even request the public to participate. We can't even request the council members to participate when they do that as well, as I understand this court case. Now, if the majority of the council wants appoint an ad hoc committee to look into this, I think we have to take it a step further, because I don't think, this isn't 1965, this is 2014, and everything that we do here, whether we like it or not, is highly regulated here. And I certainly don't want to open up any potential litigation for the city on this, like this very innocent city found themselves in, that probably spent a whole lot of money trying to defend this on something very innocent here. So if we want to do this, we can certainly, I can appoint an ad hoc committee, but I think we have to go further than just saying we're going to have one organization come here and do this, and it's going to be a clean little deal. Anytime you deal with religion and politics, there's nothing easy about it, and there's nothing clean. So if we want to do this, we really have to think about the total picture here and how we can do this legally and not set ourselves up.
Kevin,
Those are my
one thing is, we're not
concerns.
recommending that we go to the ministerial association alone, no, not at all. Because Rabbi Lang, I just told you, really wants to do it, and so does Chaplain Knapp, Catholic, and some others really want to do this. It's all
There's other
throughout.
religious organizations out there, Mike, that might want to do that too, and we cannot preclude
I
them
just
from
mentioned two
doing it.
more. I'm going to go
Well,
to
there's
next
other ones.
door.
There may be other ones too. As the
Maybe.
word, there's the Baha'i faith that was specifically stated in here, and there's other type, we have freedom of religion in this country. And if we're going to allow, this is just me, if we're going to allow one organization, we have to at least be prepared that we're going to have to allow others.
We can put this in the paper.
The only reason I brought up the Ministerial Association is simply because they do represent, there is a number of clergy in the town that have always gotten together. There probably are, as you've indicated, other recognized religions that are not a member of that, and we certainly would find that out once we made contact with the organization and see who's in and who's out, and they may decide not to want to do it themselves. They may say, no, you just go out and you're on your own. But until we know that, we can't really make much plans beyond what we're talking about.
Exactly.
If the majority of the council wants to set an ad hoc committee, we can certainly do that, but I would hope and encourage that we have a very thorough discussion on this and really bring up all of the issues here on this.
I think you're absolutely right, Mayor. I think that this isn't something we should approve tonight. I think it really needs to be thought through, and I think the ad hoc committee is probably the way to go. Let them go out and see. My only criteria is I don't think we put this onto staff. I think our
It will not
staff
be
has
staff.
enough to do than trying to line up somebody for every council meeting. And so if there's no organization that's out there, then I guess they would find that out when the ad hoc committee goes to try to figure out how it would work. But you're absolutely right. We don't want to break the law, and we don't want to set ourselves up for problems either, so.
I have a question.
Mrs. Craven, you had a question?
You're not proposing an ad hoc committee that isn't staffed?
Oh, no, 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 no. I'm talking about on an ongoing basis, that we develop a program where the city clerk has to go out.
After it's over.
Yeah, no, I think that staff, and particularly the city attorney, better be in there with the ad hoc committee.
One question that was asked by a minister today, in fact, I gave him the city attorney's name. He'd like to know what they can say by, specifics, like the Supreme Court. So I referred him to the city attorney to give him what they can do.
Yeah, maybe someone won't like the way they can. I
may
don't
not.
know.
But there are a lot of others that have said yes.
I think the committee, before we start signing people up to come, needs to develop our criteria, and we need to get it down so that we know, and each person who comes is going to know. I also support Mrs. McDonald's recommendation for a time limit, because we have had people who went on with a prayer for more than 5 minutes, and I think
That will give them direction too. 3 minutes of prayer is fine. Like anyone else in the open period.
Let me just, these last few years as being on the council and being the mayor, we have significant meetings. And when I get here, it's really important. I've got, as we all do, we've got 15 or 20 things that we're trying to do at one time here. So whatever we decide to do, I would hope it wouldn't distract our focus on really what the business and what we're really elected to do, and that's to do the people's business up here as well. So yes, I do think there should be, if in fact we do go forward, there should be a time limit on this.
Yes.
And I also am a big supporter of the Pledge of Allegiance too, and that has always got me prepared
Yeah,
for the council meetings myself. I can only speak for myself, but that's always got me prepared.
Well, Congress and the state and the county don't have a problem with opening prayer. And so, and a lot of other cities. So I don't see where that comes from. But anyway, we'll go from there.
You think about the
Your Honor, what we're doing is just basically seeking permission to go ahead and let us investigate what
Yep.
the options are out there and whether it may not be feasible. And we'll be, first come back and say that. But we'll certainly not make any commitments on behalf of the city until we have brought this back and had a full discussion and some
You mean the
action taken.
committee will? The committee hasn't been appointed yet.
No, but I mean, I'm just talking about it as the one that, someone to go out and do it,
Okay, so
gonna take
what's
some
the-
work.
Are you okay with the ad hoc? You have to appoint them, but.
I'll have to appoint him.
but-
One question,
We have to-
I had one question, Your Honor. I don't recall from memory what your policy is about the appointment of ad hoc committees, if that's something that the mayor does, and it's not
Mayor
specifically on the agenda, but I don't even think you need to necessarily make that appointment at a council meeting.
The mayor can appoint, and then it has to be ratified by the council at the next meeting.
All right, then, if that's, I'm sure your memory on it is better than mine, so I'll defer,
agree with that memory.
I'll defer to you. Does the city clerk know, do we have a written policy on it? Okay, all right, well, that's,
But why wouldn't that be, since the agenda item is here, why couldn't he make that appointment?
well,
Although maybe he wants to think about it.
it says for discussion and to direct staff, so
But-
if in fact it's our policy to let him appoint and then you ratify at your next meeting, then and that's the policy, then that's what could be done tonight.
Well, if,
But we could have a motion for him to do that tonight.
right.
Yes.
I'm not prepared tonight to appoint the members, but we certainly can have a motion to get that ball
I-
rolling.
Well, I will make that motion, because to me, it's the answer to this. I couldn't direct staff to go out and do something without some investigation. And I also hate to give the whole task to staff. I think if there's council members that are really interested in this, then they should, maybe you can appoint them, one of them, to be a part of it. But staff's got a lot to do without having to go out doing this. So I don't know if staff has something to say about that.
I agree with everything. The key item that I agree with is the time limit, because we spend a lot of time prepping for the meetings, and we allocate the time very, very carefully, down to the minute. And if we lose 10 minutes in the five, look what happened today. We got out of here after 6, well after 6. And we lost we wanted to get to the Harrison agreement, and we did lose some minutes between 5 and 6 that ended up pushing. It worked out fine, but it really does help. If someone was to give an invocation of 10 minutes, it would throw us off a little bit.
Okay. Do we need a motion, Counselor, or can I just direct you? Can they just direct me to appoint the ad hoc committee at the?
Yes, and from what I'm hearing from the policy, and I just don't have it in front of me, is that's the practice, is that you would appoint the committee and then bring it back to council for ratification at your next meeting of the appointment?
I guess what we're asking is, do we need a motion for him to direct him to do that?
No, you don't need to do that. If he's got the power to do it under your policy, you can do that without a motion.
All right.
But I think the direction to staff would be to have this matter brought back to you at your next meeting for ratification of the appointment by the mayor to the ad hoc committee.
Okay, I got it. All right, so let's go down to, okay, I know we've got several closed session meetings. Counselor, before we do new business, do you want to state the 2 closed session meetings I believe that we've got?
Yeah, we also have the one I announced previously for the successor agency. The 2 council closed session items are, they're both a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. One of them is significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2, one case. And the second one is initiation of litigation pursuant to paragraph 4 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. The number of cases is 1.
Do you anticipate anything being announced after these closed session items?
I don't think so. It depends on what we do on the second item.
Okay.
So it's possible.
Okay. All right. So let's get down, this gets down to new business. Mr. City Manager, do you have anything tonight for us?
I don't have anything other than if the staff has any items. I don't
Anybody
believe
else?
so.
Mr. City Attorney, do you have anything tonight?
I have no items.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Morgan tonight.
I'm just going to go down through these and not go into details because we've got too long. Okay, first of all, I was at the Kiwanis meeting giving a presentation about the city, and if it's any indication, folks, they were very happy with us. There were like 20-something people there, and they're very happy with what the city's doing. AWA, Association of Water Agencies, we did our final meeting for this until after August, and that was just a business meeting, nothing more. 100th year anniversary. We had a 100th year anniversary of a lady in over, and she's from Canada originally. She's been here for 5 years. Super lady. I'm talking about somebody that's 100 years old that's pretty sharp. She can play chess with you and probably win, but pretty nice lady. Then we had a business visit to Cool Planet, Bill Little and I did. That's the first time I've been somewhere where it was truly R&D. It wasn't producing something now, it's R&D developing something, and it's working. It looks like it's going to be a valuable product. It's one that does products that enhance the gas. Instead of putting, what do you call it stuff, corn, what's the corn produce gas additive? Ethanol. Instead of being ethanol, this would be better than ethanol. It is made out of corn stalks, and they're looking at every other kinds of things they can make this out of too. That's what the whole research point is. Additionally, the byproduct of that is a carbon type product called char. You put it in the soil, 2.5, 3 feet down, it saves the water. It holds the water. And so I've got a farmer I'm going to hook up with him that's willing to put some of his acreage into that and see how it works here in the Oxnard Plain. If that works, we've got another asset to our credit here. Fiesta, well, Fiesta killed me for like a week, so that's over. Thank God it's over. I'm about dead. Business visit, Airborne. Airborne is another one of those companies that's hidden. You don't know about, that's growing. It does parts for C-130s. Every part, they've got the licensed and certified by, is it Lockheed Martin? For C-130s. So that's a growing company here in Camarillo that you just don't know is there. Air Control Board meeting, business, end of the year, and we're not going to meet till after August. Chamber mixer visit Spanish Hills, nice turnout of young people. It is the young people's turnout for the chamber. EDCVC, Bill and I went to the EDCVC meeting, and that lasted long, but it was a valuable meeting. I'll let Bill talk a little more about that. Dons and Doñas. The Pleasant Valley Historical Society greeted the Dons and Doñas. It'll be put in place in August. My wife happens to be one, and she is, she's earned it, ladies and everything. But that was a very fun meeting, and there was a lot of people there, probably 60 people there just at a reception. So that was valuable. That's it.
Mr. Little, anything tonight?
Well, I did the business visits that Mike talked about. Also did the EDVC with Mr. Morgan. I presided at the Airport Authority Board, and Councilmember McDonald and myself did the investment committee, and attended the fiesta, which I thought was a very fine, very good fiesta. That's it.
Mrs. Craven, anything tonight?
I attended the Economic Development Committee meeting on Friday, and this afternoon I attended the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency meeting, which took quite a while. The one thing I want to report from there, it was on appeals from 7 farmers who had been told they could not drill their wells. But that isn't of concern to us. What was of concern to us is that I heard board members questioning something that the city has taken advantage of, and that is that when a well is converted from ag to M&I, there's a formula so that we get 2 acre feet. 2 acre feet per acre per year. And they are seriously questioning whether that should go down. So I think we really need to keep an eye out for any proposals that are coming, any discussion, keep our ears open, because they're looking at chopping away things, and it really caught me by surprise when that came up, not from the farmers, but from board members. It wasn't on the agenda, so we couldn't talk about it. The public hearing took some twists and turns. I also attended a pillar of our community with the mayor for Les Meredith, and that was very nice. He was on the Planning Commission, I believe, longer than anybody else has been on the Planning Commission. And, no?
Walt Lusk has been there forever.
No,
I
I
pointed
think
him way
Les
back 20
was
years
long
forward.
before you were elected
I
in the
understand it.
80s, and he was for many years.
No.
He was Stan's,
No.
too, so it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get in an argument over whether your appointee or somebody else's appointee is longer, but he was on it for years and years and years, is my point. And I knew him in a couple of other capacities, and he was a good man, and he had Camarillo's best interests at heart. I have something else. I think this has got to have been the most read article. It appeared, it was an Associated Press article. It appeared in both the Times and the Star last week. And it's about water use. And way down in the 3rd column, it talks about a resident of Anaheim who was very frustrated because she got, right about the time the $500 fines were announced, she got a letter from the city telling her that she had to green up her lawn. And that's the question I'm getting from everybody. Are we going to be getting, I don't know, are the water regulations going out in the July bill? Somebody told me they were, but I haven't gotten my bill yet.
No, we'll be, during the month of August, sending out information
Okay, well, this
to
lady,
go into effect in
this
September.
lady this morning was sure they were going to come in her July bill. She's been watching for it. And I said, well, I really don't know when they're coming out. But she said, well, I don't want all this stuff and then restricting my water use and then to get a notice about my yard. And so I know I've brought this up before, but I think this is something we really need to talk about because people haven't gotten their regulations from the city yet. Maybe that's one reason why they're concerned. And I bet 10 people have asked me about this article.
Yeah, I read that one too.
I don't know if anybody else has had comments, but
I read it.
it's something that people are concerned about, and I think it's something we need to talk about as to how we're going to address this. And then the other question I've had by about 3 people is how much is the city lowering its water consumption?
Go look at the park, you can tell it's cut back.
We will be following the same rules that everybody else is required to follow.
Okay. Which we haven't sent out yet.
That's correct. Again, we don't want to get ahead of, we don't want to rush this and get it wrong. We want to make sure we have the right public outreach like we've done in the past where we've hired experts that do this. And that's what we're in the process of doing now, is securing a contract with those experts to then help us during the month of August to provide the public outreach so that things can go into effect in essence in September.
Are we going to hire a public outreach firm or just a
We will be hiring a marketing company that we've actually had some, on minor projects, had some contact with and feel they do a good job. So we're,
Okay, so not hiring a water agency or a government agency to do this. It's going to be somebody who knows how to do public outreach.
that's exactly correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Council, back to your previous
Yes.
point about council direction or policy about the tension between watering lawns and yet being under drought restriction. From a code enforcement standpoint, we would really appreciate direction from council on that because a lot of lawns really can't take the kind of stress that they're going to take by continually pulling back on the water that they're doing. And as we see lawns browning out, we are really struggling as to what our role is going to be on enforcement from an aesthetic point of view.
That's why I keep bringing it up. I think we need to have a time when we sit down and talk about this and give some direction to staff, because that's what people are asking me. I'm sure they're asking the rest of you the same thing.
Same thing.
And I don't know what to tell them. But I can't tell them to cut back 20% and to not do anything to keep on watering their lawn. I mean, it's hard. So it isn't for us to decide tonight, but I'm asking that this be brought back so we can give staff some direction.
That's good. Okay. Did you have a follow-up?
Maybe we could refer this to either the policy committee or the utilities committee and let them.
We've got a meeting in August set.
Oh, I think it has to come. My turn.
Well, it has to come back to this board. I mean, just
Let me do all that.
council, but that's just a suggestion.
No. If the council would like to do it, we certainly can.
I think we need to.
Okay, we'll take that up. Anything else, Ms. Craven?
That's
Ms.
all.
McDonald, do you have anything?
I do have a few, and I'll start with that one. When it comes back to us, I would like to hear from, bring in someone who really knows landscape, who knows lawns, because you do not you can cut back water in your lawn without killing it, and I think we need to give guidance to people how to keep their landscape alive while we get through this drought, till my El Nino shows up. I'm going to keep saying
gonna
it.
hold you to that,
I
you
know
know.
it. But anyway, there's ways to do it. I mean, cutting back 20% does not mean you have to let your whole yard die. And I think maybe giving some guidance and help in how to manage to get through this, because a lot of people have a lot of money in their yards, and we need to see if we can help them keep it alive while we get through this without wasting water. Speaking of water, my next one has to do with the power wash of the sidewalks on Ventura Boulevard after the fiesta. They came through, and I guess the sidewalks looked pretty good, but they didn't seem to care about everybody's windows. So now you have merchants who had clean windows are now splattered with dirt from the sidewalks. So you have some unhappy merchants.
I thought you couldn't power wash hard surfaces.
Why, supposedly they power washed it. I wasn't there. Did they?
Oh, it's Saturday. Was it Saturday, Tom?
I don't recall which day it was. I think they were planning to do it over the weekend to try it during after hours so that they weren't interfering with the times when the businesses were open. If the businesses feel that they have dirty windows from the power washing, let us know. We'll take care of it.
Okay, so have them call your office?
Yeah, or they can just call either the General Public Works number, which is 388-5340. That's probably the best number, 5340, and we'll get it to the right person.
Okay, I will do that.
I have a squeegee and a mop I use. I can go on over there and help you out, Tom.
Well, I guess a couple of these people had just had their windows done, and then they come back on Monday, and they're all splattered with the sidewalk cleaning, which, if you think about it, technically, we probably shouldn't have done.
Against the
Usually they
governor's
don't get
order.
that high. I mean, I've seen it, and they usually don't get that high. It usually stays down
Not
below
supposed to be
rock.
doing anything to hard surfaces.
Again, you can wash with a nozzle if you
Yes.
have a shut-off.
No, you can't wash sidewalks.
Not hard surfaces,
car.
only cars.
Anyway.
We have a contract to power wash Old Town 4 times a year. If your direction is to stop doing that, we'll discontinue.
No.
Well, I think we need to look at what the governor's order was.
Follow the same rules, no?
Because if we're going to be considering fines for people, I think we have to follow the same rules. Maybe I misunderstood
you're
what his
going to-
order said, but
If you're going to do that and stop that, you're going to see that Old Town get really nasty and dirty. I'm telling you right now, because I've seen it. I'm down there, and after Fiesta, even before Fiesta, that's when it needed it already, but it's going to get
You know,
dirty.
Perhaps we don't need, I mean, we can have a conversation later on
we
this.
can
but
have it
maybe
another time.
Yeah, let's
I
have a
think it goes
conversation
into
another
this whole
time.
water, what we're going to do. Also, meeting-wise, VCOG on July the 10th, it was all about animals. We heard from our animal shelter and great praise from everyone that it's getting to be a no-kill, and it's really a model for almost all of California now. And I know you know his name, Kevin, and I'm sorry, I totally forgot it. The doctor in Simi who does the
Novi. Dr.
Novi. He now has a portable unit where he will go out to communities and do free spay and neutering. So he's really committed to doing that. So that's up and operating. So if there's an area